furious battlefield force. Savage in combat and notoriously difficult to kill. Well, I don't know about that second part. I feel like Hydras usually die really fast. Anyways, guys, we have a showdown between the Greenskins, who are going to be led by Dr. Doom and Darkness, the Blessed Dread, who's going to be led by none other than the dreaded your Felheart. So, guys, fun. So as far as the Greenskin army goes in the front line, I do have a combination of the Savage Orcs and the Black Orcs. So Savage Orcs are pretty decent against a lot of the typical, not to say High Elves, but that would be archery, but the Dark Elf front line. So you're going to have Bleak Swords and Dread Spears, and yeah, they're going to do pretty well against those lightly armored targets. On top of that, Witch Elves, Sisters of Slaughter, also somewhat common, and something you do see in this matchup. And Savage Orcs will probably lose against Witch Elves as well as Sisters, but in doing so, they're going to be trading relatively efficiently because they're much cheaper. Savage Orcs cost 550. Even fighting a group of, let's say, Sisters of Slaughter, I feel like they would do some decent damage before they rout off, and probably honestly going to pay for themselves how much they cost. Aside from that, we have two groups of the Black Orcs in the front line. These bad boys definitely do the trick. One of my favorite units on the Greenskin roster. They really just provide you an anchor, which many low leadership factions have trouble with, right? Because you do want to protect your back line. You have archers, you have other units that you're going to be using to pressure the bigger targets, like Giant War Hydra here. So the Black Orcs are that anchor. They're going to hold in the front line. They're relatively reliable. Yes, they do have low melee defense, but they make up for that with their 110 armor. And on top of that, these bad boys are one of the few units on the roster that are immune to psychology. For example, the Savage Orcs are immune to psychology while their frenzy is active. You can see that, but it is conditional. Once they're frenzy and they get below 50 leadership, which happens very quickly with Savage Orcs, they got 0 armor and 17 melee defense. They're going to be dropping in leadership pretty quick. But the Black Orcs are solid. They're like Old Faithful. They're Old Yeller. They're going to be sitting there the whole time, definitely doing a pretty good job for you. In the secondary line, I decided to go with a bit of a different kit. So I went with Savage Orc Air Boys. Now, these guys aren't pushovers in melee. They do have 38 weapon strength, 32 melee attack, 8 melee defense, which is insane. That is so low. But, I mean, if they have to fight, at least they can, go fisticuffs and do a little bit of punching against the Dark Elves. If some Dark Riders or other harass units got into the back line, they would be able to fight. I was like, hey, the Rusty Airs, would be useful here, but I feel like just having these things to take down Hydras and Sisters and Witch Elves going to be fine. And Savage Orc Air Boys have better armor piercing as is. I think Goblins have like 1 or 2 armor piercing damage, and these guys got 6, which actually isn't terrible, for the Greenskins. Yeah, we got 3 groups of them. The back, each is going to be protected by nasty Skulkers on the flanks. Smoke Bomb, of course, very, very important matchup, because oftentimes your Savage Orcs and other troops are going to buckle. So when they get through the front line, you want to send in the Goblins, Smoke Bomb them. That's going to buy you more time to shoot them with arrows. On top of that, we have 2 groups of the Squake Hoppers, Night Goblins, Squake Hoppers here, and the Darked Squake. So we have the RORs, which are fast. These guys got great armor piercing. I think that was something that changed. I think that was like a changing game too, but armor piercing, bonus versus infantry, they cause poison. They have a lot of utility, but more often than not, I just use the front line to kind of hammer enemy infantry, especially lightly armored infantry. They do have AP, but I still love to just bow down these bleeds. We got Azag up in the skies, Dr. Doom and Darkness, as I like to call him, and yeah, he's pretty cool. Spirit Leech and Soulblight. We're going to be trying to go after the Lords. He's a very powerful duelist. Extremely low melee defense, so you want to be the one getting that kind of a backstabbing jump on people. But if you can, he's got huge melee attack, poison, Spirit Leech, and he has massive armor piercing and a pretty chubby charge bonus. Pretty cool. Got some skirmishers, Death Creepers, Forest Goblin Spider Riders, and that's pretty much it. 2 Goblin Big Bosses. Well, for my opponent's army, he does have some Dark Riders out in the front doing a little bit of a Vanguard play. He's basically just some ammunition here, which is always good. On top of that, he's got some Dread Spears on the outsides of the formation. He does have a lot of Corsairs, and Corsairs are kind of a cool unit against the Greenskins. They'll get pounded by Black Orcs pretty badly, lose that engagement, but against Savage Orcs and a lot of other Greenskin troops, I feel like they're going to be good because they have 80 armor, they're cheap, and they also have a bonus versus infantry. They're going to be pretty effective against things like Savage Orcs. I like that pick quite a bit, and just in case I went with heavy Black Orcs, he does have plenty of armor piercing with the Hydra, 2 groups of Dark Shards as well to focus him down, and honestly, Sisters of Slaughter probably trade relatively Black Orcs. I mean, actually have to do a head-to-head, but I mean, they would struggle against the armor for sure, but these guys are just mean. I mean, they can grind down a lot of blows. He does have a Reaper Bolt Thrower in the back, which is probably going to be shooting after boars, and maybe he was expecting to bring some spider shenanigans, but looks like it's going to be doing the spray fire. I have seen people use Reaper Bolt Throwers for pretty good effect against Airs and Goblin Archer. He does have Lokir, so Lokir Felheart on foot is going to be pretty cool. He does have the Dreaded Duelist as well as the Helm of the Kraken, and he does have a sword. Sorceress with fire, so we have Fireball, Burning Head, and Piercing Bolts. So my forces are going to be advancing here. The Black Orcs are taking some chipping damage. They haven't lost any models yet, but like the Ballista is going to be shooting at them, or the doing the spray fire mode. I think has less armor piercing, although it does hit more models, so maybe worth it. But he is chipping away the Black Orcs a little bit. The Hydra is going to be moving forth here, probably to get a fat, juicy breath attack on these Black Orcs. I found the Hydra to be a little bit more effective to get it on the side and shoot down the line, because sometimes if you do a head-on shot, it just shoots the corner of the formation for some reason. Pretty. We're going to see how the Hydra does. Dark Riders are going to be circling around. I'm basically just kind of mirroring him and just watching the Hydra. I just want to get all this focus fire on the Hydra. And here comes the first breath attack. Going to be going right down the pipe. So maybe that was something that Creative Assembly fixed. I remember that when it used to happen, it would just like hit like the left 2 units, and so frustrating. But that wasn't terrible, but it definitely does a little bit more damage down the pipe. But I get why my opponent did it. Probably do the same thing just to try and get the uses out there, right? Because it has multiple charges. You want to optimize and make sure you can get as many as you can. On top of that, it was a little bit blobbed up, so it actually hit my units in the back. It roasted a couple of these spiders, and it looks like it took out 2 black orcs, so definitely not catty. So the Hydra is a little bit overextended. Now, it's not going to be free, because he does have the Dark Shards in the back. So the Dark Shards are going to be able to kind of shoot me as I'm attacking it, but I'm like, you know what? Hydras are relatively low leadership beasts. Let's charge in there with Azag and our Goblin Big Bosses, so those are going to be getting in there and hopefully getting some damage. A little bit of work. We do have the poison on him, so his speed is now 35, and here come the Goblins, and we also have a nice little push fire in from the back. So the frontline engagement is underway, and my opponent had a really nice play. So what he did is he pulled back the Bleak Swords. Solid stuff, really good micro here. He pulls them back, and he engages with the Blackheart Corsairs. So this is something that you should always do. If you don't have that favorable engagement, you can always just kind of pull back and kite them into something else. On top of that, he pulls me through more fire from the Dark Shards in the back. So the Blackheart Corsairs are going to slam into me. It screws up my charge bonus because I was charging the other units, so I don't even get that good charge on the Corsairs. Very well played there. These guys are actually still facing, but we do some good damage on the charge. I mean, Savage Orcs, they're definitely pretty beastly when they first engage. The Black Orcs are going to be fighting Lokir, so Lokir's in here just absolutely tanking these guys. And now, Lokir is a pretty good melee defense. Yeah, he does particularly melee defense, so even though he doesn't have the best AP, he'll be able to hold for quite some time. So he sent the Squigs in as well, trying to kind of just bum rush the back line. The wall has been popped as my main troops and my Black Orcs are going to be hitting the front line here. Dirkit Squigs definitely getting some good armor-piercing damage here on the Corsairs, but a little bit dangerous. I kind of overextended a little bit, but I just wanted to kind of swarm and pressure wherever I could. So the Black Orcs here are going to be piling in against the Bleak Swords. The Hydra is very low, but it's able to stabilize for the most part, so I pulled back the Goblin Big Bosses. The Savage Orcs here are just beating down these Dark Riders, able to kind of catch them. I think he basically sent them in to save the Hydra, but the Hydra's going to be jumping in, but Dr. Doom and Darkness is all over him. We're getting in there. We cast the Soul Blight, I believe, over in the main line somewhere, but you can see we actually have some serious routing issues. So the Savage Orcs here get broken off by the Corsairs. The Dirkit Squigs did a good job, but I was a little bit sloppy with them. I also sent them in here, but they got kind of caught up on Lokir Felheart, which was a little bit unfortunate. He does have the Dreaded Duelist, which does give him melee defense as well. So he's at 91 and 91, and he's regenerating. So the Black Orcs are putting a dent in him, but that regeneration is really, really good and tasty. In the meantime, I'm trying to rotate my archers over to get on the Hydra to help out a little bit, and I do have some Force Goblin Spider Riders who are going to be rushing in to help out, but that Hydra is kind of buttering some bread, and he does have these Dark Shards right here. So the back, I chased off his Dark Riders with the Death Creepers, and they're going to be coming back in, charging these Dark Shards in just a moment. And the Hydra's getting very low, but I'm also taking a little bit of damage on Azag, which isn't fun. He's down to about 3,000 HP, and that other volley does about 500, 400 damage to him. Very, very good stuff, but we do finally get the Hydra. Savage Orcs here are going to be fighting Corsairs, which isn't the best engagement, but I finally do send in the Death Creeper to shut down these archers, because, man, we're punishing Azag. Definitely some very, very good armor-piercing value coming. Whenever you guys take out a Hydra, anytime, I mean, Hydras, I think, do have a bit of a niche against Greenskins. Terror, and they regenerate. But anytime you're able to finish a Hydra or get it low, you always want to chase it off the battlefield. So at this point, I detach one Goblin Big Boss, I chase off the War Hydra, and because this thing could heal. I mean, it could potentially heal up to like 3,000 HP and just be an absolute terror, just pain in my ass coming back to the battlefield. In the mainline fight, I do have my Savage Orc Airboys just kind of shooting into Corsairs whenever they can hit. Can't really get the best positioning. And in the back, my other group of Force Goblin Spider Riders is able to compromise the Reaper Voltor. But still, nonetheless, we're trying to hunt down this caster. It's pretty slippery here. It looks like he's going to be pulling some of these Dread Spears to try and intercept. Lokir Felheart's doing pretty good. He's just kind of tanking here, regenerating, and he's actually put a huge dent in these Black Orcs. He's really kind of stifled my charge. I was hoping those Black Orcs would chew through some troops. Unfortunately, I do fall back there, not by my own will. That bombardment hits troops. So we do have some Savage Orcs rallying here. Azag is taking a little bit more damage. Just Dark Shard Fire just doing so much work. And I do have some elements that could do some solid work to the back line here. The Goblin Big Boss finished off the Hydra. Over here, we still have this pit fight between the Black Orcs and the Bleak Swords. And some of the Dark Shards were able to stabilize here, but I have some Gobos coming in. It's Creepers. Going to be riding dirty and hopefully off some of the Dark Shards. But a pretty close fight. I am slightly ahead on the bounce of power, but the fact that I am getting the caster is very helpful. Azag is very tough to get away from. Fast, 110 speed. Really quick. He has poison as well, but we are able to get this over. It's going to be pretty nice. Of course, Goblin Spider Riders do come from the shadows and jump on top of those Dark Shards right there. So finally, taking the pressure off Azag, who's in really bad shape. Over here, the Sisters of Slaughter were able to beat the brakes off the Savage Orcs, but look at this. I mean, they took some damage from the arrows so far, but the Savage Orcs put a bit of hurting on the Sisters. I was quite proud of those guys. They also had 37. Bad. But I think I had the Squig Hoppers maybe helping out. I can't quite remember. Squig Hoppers are going to be coming back in. These Savage Orc Airboys are going to be running, I think, at a moment. But here, I think I actually ended up charging. So they're going to be charging into these ladies, and the 8 melee defense is definitely not going to serve these guys too well, as that guy actually gets his head whipped off. There's something you don't see every day, but you know what? Night Goblin Squig Hoppers coming in with the rear charge. I'm just trying to polish these guys off, but they're so damn strong, and there's actually a bit of a rallying force of Dark Elves. So Bleak Swords, Dread Spears, and Lokir Felheart over here is anchoring these dark shards, and he might be able to save them here from Horse Goblin Spider Riders. In the back, I saw him get back on the artillery piece, and I was like, I can't have that, because the Reaper Bolt Thrower would do some really good damage against Azag. I was like, gotta chase this guy off, gotta go. The Azag's on the hunt here. Hopefully he'll be able to polish those guys off, and I do have the Goblin Big Bosses now coming back to the battlefield. So my next idea, I was like, okay, I need to probably start working on Loke here, but he's one of those units that you can't leave for last, but you know, Azag does have enough armor piercing, he has the poison, he has Spirit Leeches, and I also have a couple Goblin Big Bosses, so right. Nice countercharge from my opponent with these Dark Riders. They came from, I think, maybe chasing my back line a little bit, but I do have a lot of, you know, routing forces. If you look over here, all these guys are pretty much buttered up and just very, very low. On the far side, yeah, these guys are mostly routing some Squig Hoppers in the back. The Jerkit Squigs coming back. My Archer's pretty much offline because this huge Dark Elf blob is just chasing me, but the Savage Orc Airboy should be able to get some nice Overwatch. So I jump in here, seeing Loki or Felheart, I'm like, okay, let's go for the Bane. Like, you know, when Bane picks up Batman and like breaks his back over. Yeah, that's what I'm going for. I'm going for the Bane. I'm trying to get down Loki or Felheart, and he actually does get terrified, and my second Law now comes into play, which is going to be pretty huge. But, you know, Azag is very low. He has 500 HP, and we are able to get Loki or Felheart. It looks like he is going to be falling to Azag. Dr. Doom here doing a very good job, but he has 125 HP, is incredibly low. Those Dark Shards able to rally in the last second and get some really good Overwatch fire. Here come the Savage Orcs. So the Savage Orcs, hearing the call of Azag as he flees from the battlefield, are going to be charging up the hill, and they're shaken, so they don't have their frenzy, but they're pretty angry with that wall right now. Hopefully they can get in there and finish these guys off. And the Goblin Big Boss is doing a very good job just kind of anchoring the fight. Yeah, these Dark Shards are going to get massacred pretty bad by the Savage Orcs. I mean, those guys are pretty unlowers in melee. And I do have a lot of forces rallying back. So Nasty Skulkers are going to be hopefully getting a Smoke Bomb here, but it looks like my opponent is going to hit with the army losses. So very well played to my opponent. That was a super fun game. And he also had a very thematic build, bringing Loki or Felheart with Corsairs. And it was pretty scary. I mean, Azag with 100 HP took a bit of a beating, and he also really routed my center pocket heavily. You guys saw what he did. He pulled back the Bleak Swords and forced me into suboptimal engagement. So my Savage Orcs then had to engage against Corsairs. I didn't really have enough mobility with the Black Orcs to kind of dictate the terms of the engagement. That's something that, you know, Elvish factions can usually do. So that was some very solid micro in the beginning with that front line, which I think helped him win a couple of those engagements. On top of that, the Dark Shards did some solid damage to Azag. Thankfully, I was just able to barely survive with those guys. Finish off the Hydra with the Big Bosses and Azag using Spirit Leeches, and there we were able to kind of pull on through that force. But man, that was a really close fight. Savage Orc Airboys did a good job. A lot of kills, 61, 38, 14. Now, had I brought Goblins, I could have probably brought a couple more, or maybe one more Archer, but I feel like the Savage Orcs did their job. Shot at the Corsairs, we shot at the Sisters of Slaughter. We were able to do a little bit of decent poke, and when push came to shove and they had to fight melee, they were able to get some kills as well and, you know, kind of whittle those guys down. But man, those Sisters of Slaughter got a ton of kills. So yeah, the Bleak Swords and Dread Spears just basically, you know, standard chaff. I do like the Corsairs in this matchup, like I said. Sisters were beast mode, but War Hydra is something that I do like to use as well, but sometimes I find it just gets like focused down or sniped, and like we were joking about, rescreen quickly. But he was able to do a little bit of work and did take a lot of focus from Azag, and my other troops are down. So very well played to my opponent, Mike. Look forward to running into you again on ladder, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this Greenskin versus the Blessed Dread Dark Elves. See you guys next time, and thanks again for watching.